Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Hub Underground. Matt Dolph here with Ty Anderson, as we are every single episode. You can, of course, get us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, sometimes on YouTube. We're inching ever closer to every week on YouTube because, hi, folks, we are live in Studio Q at 98.5 The Sports Hub. This is the Sports Hub Psych Ward, as we've talked about many times, and I can't stress enough how much Ty and I both hate being on camera. We are doing this for the people, Ty. Last week's episode, despite the problems in the studio, got a very positive reaction, especially for you. People love Ty Anderson.
No.
People want more. I'm telling you, people want more Ty Anderson. They don't care about me, but they want you, Ty. I am doing this for the people. I am trying to deliver Tyler Lee Anderson to the people because the people want it. And so we're doing this. We are incredibly uncomfortable. I'm going to police the comments. I'm going to be a big fat pussy about this, and I'm going to delete any negative comments. Please be nice. Please be positive.
What are those noises? What is that noise?
Okay, now we got a hissing noise.
There's a hissing noise. This is why I don't want to do it.
No, I don't know what that is.
When we do a regular podcast, there's no noise besides us.
It might have just been me shaking the table or something.
Well,
but no,
don't do that.
We have assurances that the computer's not going to beep at us.
This episode is brought to you by Zoa Frosted Grape.
Nope, we're going to bleep that out.
Nope, we can't. Okay.
Nope, no free advertising on the Sports Hub Underground.
Maybe someone will advertise with us. We'll see.
We'll get in touch with the Zoa sales team. How's that sound?
I think that's Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Do you have his number?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Me too.
I think he's at the Cannes Film Festival right now, but I'll get in touch with him after the screening.
He's gonna walk onto the podcast and just go.
Yeah,
and then never revisit it.
Yeah, no, I'll never come back. He'll sit down in the board meeting like, I think I should be the host of the Sports Hub Underground. Dwayne, what do you know about the Boston Bruins? I know they're going to lay the smack it down.
That's original content right there.
Yeah.
No, I don't really. It's the lights. They're too bright. Turn them off. It's like I feel like that meme right now.
That I hate. Yeah, I love the shadows of the mics on my shoulder right now.
Yeah. Looks quite phallic.
No, it's great. No, I love the equipment we have. It's always working, functioning properly. We definitely don't have to forego the middle microphones.
Listen,
because they sound like shit, and we definitely don't have to use these mics, which should be 1 and 4, but it's actually that's 2. This is 4. It makes perfect sense.
2 and 4. Terry O'Reilly 2-4. There we go. King Griffey Jr. as well.
Manny Ramirez 24.
No, it's fine. I understand it's part of it. Please note that I am mainly in jest when I make fun of being on camera. I've done it before. Obviously, I've done stuff with NBC Sports Boston and whatnot. It's just like there's always that feeling of, I loved doing when NBC Sports Boston had Sports Sunday. I loved doing it because it was 12:30 at night. And if you're watching, you don't care about me. You care about what the sports that we're going to talk about, And
it's television. It's not like it's on the internet and they can just jump into the comments. And be like,
right. Blah, blah, blah. So but when I would do like early edition or Boston Sports Tonight, I would be so stressed. I'd be like, oh man, I hope I don't mess up my words. Because that's you have the carryover audiences from be it a Celtics post game, be it the people who watch Felger and Mass from 2 to 6, and then they just leave NBC Sports Boston on right in early edition. And you get my mug staring at you. So there's that part of it where it's you have that in your mind. You're like, oh man, people are thinking lots of opinions about things that I can't really control. And I don't like it about myself. And so there's things like that, but I understand it's all part of it.
It's tough. Yeah. You gotta do your best to just block all that stuff out. You gotta be Zen. You gotta meditate.
You gotta be a closer. You gotta be a closer. You gotta be Jalen Brunson in the fourth quarter. You gotta just do your thing.
Well, it's sort of like when I've tried meditation a lot. It helps. It helps. It's just hard
goofy for me. Can't do it.
It feels goofy for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think Joe List, the comedian, is like, oh, you mean that thing where I have to sit there in silence with only my thoughts?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that should help. But it's funny. They don't tell you stop the thoughts. They say, let it pass. Let it pass through. You treat your thoughts like it's a babbling brook in front of you, and you just let it pass on by.
Just do it. Brook won't stop babbling.
Simple it up, just like that. Yeah, just let your negative thoughts pass on by.
Yeah,
it's like if my mind is a house tie, the negative thoughts they break the windows and break into the house. That's what it's like for me.
Well, that's I've always joked with you. I think when I had my heart issue a couple of years ago.
Whoa, let's not talk about ourselves now.
Well, no, when I had the heart issue a couple of years ago, I didn't really understand what the doctors were saying because I'm just an idiot. And I was like, okay, can you explain to me in a more efficient way? And she goes, imagine your body is an apartment. And I was like, yeah. She goes, you have really bad wiring. You have really cheap wiring in your apartment. I was like, oh, cool. So I'm like a slumlord's property. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, your body needs to call the fire department, basically.
And she's like,
your whole body is a fire hazard.
She's like, your wiring is just really bad. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What do I do? Like, just don't turn things on too quickly. I'm like, okay. Yeah. I'm like, all right.
Just don't cut the blue wire. She just walks out. What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
One of the best comments last week was, "You guys aren't getting a dime from me until you stop talking about yourselves." I was like, "You're not getting a dime. We're not taking a dime from you either way."
Yeah, can that happen?
This is free content.
I was going to say,
the video's free.
Well,
I don't know what to tell you there.
We have a lot of stuff to get into today.
Yes.
So I say we just jump right in.
We jive.
We jive. We jump.
I speak jive.
Jump, jive, and wail. What is that? What was that?
The Brian Setzer Orchestra.
Yeah.
I had that CD. I love that song.
That CD was like blue and green on the cover, like blue, black, and green, like very minty kind of aesthetic to it.
Yes, yeah. Blue, like turquoise type thing. Yeah. I remember I mowed the lawn two weeks in a row.
Yeah.
To save up to get that CD. I went and got that CD, ran home. Kicked my sister's door down. Thankfully, she wasn't in there. I threw it in the CD player, turned the CD player all the way up, and ran around the house, jumping and screaming, jump jabbing and wailing.
So, what is the worst CD that you've ever purchased as a child that you look back on and go, "Why did I have that CD?" Would it be that one?
Well, no. It's usually I guess I don't already know, but like the ones that I purchased were music I turned out to love, like Rage Against the Machine or something like that. Yeah. But then there was
I'm talking like an album, because we didn't have iTunes back then.
Yeah.
So you had
you were at
the mercy. To dive in.
Yeah. There might have been a couple of Iron Maiden albums where like I loved Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Yeah.
Number of the Beast. Like I love those. There might have been a couple of more recent ones.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, all right, this one isn't doing it for me. But other than that, like I had pretty good experiences buying CDs back in the day.
So the first CD that I ever bought with like,
oh wait, I got a good one, but
my own money. The first CD I ever bought my own money was a good one. That was Beastie Boys' "Hello Nasty."
There you go.
I was like allowance money or birthday money. I can't remember exactly.
With Intergalactic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Body Moving, 3 MCs, 1 DJ, like all good stuff. Remote Control, great opening track. I believe it's the opening track. The worst, though, has to be like by far. I was 7 years old, and there's a little summertime hit came out. A little summertime hit called, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mambo number 5.
Oh my
I
God.
had the Lou Bega album, and
oh my God,
dude, it was so bad. Like it was like salsa music. And I was like a 7-year-old, like white kid. I was like, what is this?
Right.
I just like the Mambo number 5 song.
So I imagine the first track, Mama number 5, was the first track.
It was the second,
right out.
I think.
Really?
It was the second.
Okay.
But it was like a small intro was track 1. It wasn't like
that's not a proper track.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you got the Mambo number 5, which is like a pop song, the way it's like structured and everything, and then after that it's just like straight salsa
Latin,
mambo music,
Latin music. Yeah. I was just like, well, this is not gonna work for me.
That's awesome. I love that. No, my pick, Ty. Do you remember a little CD called Slammin' Wrestling Hits?
Oh, they were like knockoffs, right? They weren't the actual ones.
This is how big of a wrestling dweeb I was. Me and my friends, we would do wrestling. We would play wrestling.
Yeah.
So we wanted to have the actual music. We would have the Discman, and we'd pop in WWF The Music Volume 3 or whatever, and play and hook up a little computer speaker to the CD player, and we would play the music like Stone Cold Steve Austin, DX, whatever. This we wanted. What we were lacking was Goldberg and like basically like stuff that wasn't WWF at the time. So I saw the commercial for Slammin' Wrestling Hits. I was like, oh my God, it has all this other music that we've been longing to have on a CD. This is before YouTube, before we could just like pull it up on our phone. I got that CD, and oh my God, it was the biggest collection of rip-off MIDI generic, knockoff themes. We were expecting the real music, but it was like MIDI covers of it.
Yeah. No,
I don't know how this guy got away with all the copyright infringement on it.
He was probably the same guy who did all the tracks at WCW.
Yeah,
probably.
I think any wrestling fans that listen to Sports Up Underground, you might be familiar with the CD anyway, but I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube now. Go pull up Mankind's music.
Yeah,
it is a cover of specifically WWF The Music Volume 2, I think. His music, his old music when he had the scary orchestra music coming out. It would start with him like saying, it's going to be enjoyable for me, but not so enjoyable for all of you.
Yeah.
they covered that specific vocal part. The way the guy says it is so funny. I don't want to try to like mimic it right now. You just got to go look that up on YouTube.
Got to find it.
All right. I think we've dispensed with the preliminaries enough, Ty. Should we get into the hockey part?
Yeah, we got to do it.
There? We got to do it. We're a little pressed for time, but we're live in Studio Q. We're live on video. We're doing this for the people. We're not doing it for ourselves because we hate this, but we're happy to have you on YouTube. Hopefully you're happy to have us. We got some Bruins stuff to get to today, Ty. Do you want to start with players or coaches?
Let's start with coaches, just because that's the most probably pressing.
Sure.
And that will be resolved before the players situation.
Sure.
Resolved.
Okay. So yeah, we got some fresh nuggets coming out this week. Yeah. Elliot Friedman, Frank Saravelli, who I consider a friend of the program at this point, Frank Saravelli, both mentioned former Oilers head coach Jay Woodcroft as Frank Saravelli said a leading candidate. Elliot Friedman said, like Elliot Friedman's very Mike Reese-esque, where he'll say, I'm kind of wondering about this, but he knows. Yeah. He knows. Jay Woodcroft sounds like he's really in the mix to be the Bruins head coach. He had some success with the Oilers. Pretty similar to Jim Montgomery in the sense that he got off to a terrible start. The team got off to a terrible start and fired him pretty early in the season. Last time he was in the NHL, he went to the Worlds for Team Canada. After that, he's been out of the NHL this season. But it sounds like he's back in the mix to be a head coach in the NHL again. Just any general thoughts you have? Anything you know about potential Jay Woodcroft as the next Bruins head coach?
Yeah, so I don't know anything more than Frank or Elliot would. It's an interesting candidate. I think you look at the Oilers and where they came up short under him. It's kind of hard to like completely crucify him in the sense that in 2022 they lose to the team that wins the cup. They lose to Colorado.
Right.
In 2023, they lose to Vegas, the team that wins the cup.
So, it's kind of like you can't crucify Jim Montgomery for losing to Florida the year they won the cup.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but I listen, I'm wary when it comes to the Oilers and their head coaches in general, if only because, okay, well, when you have 97 and 29, it really helps, in terms of what you're able to do as a team. And you have Draisaitl and McDavid. What's your system beyond that, right? Like what do you do beyond having those two players that makes you a great coach or an excellent team? And that's something that I've kind of criticized the Oilers about for a long time now, is that I do not like their brand of hockey. I do not enjoy watching them because I think their system is try to survive the minutes without 97 and 29, and then we'll throw them out there and they'll win the game. Like that's kind of what it feels like to a certain degree. And so I'm a little bit reluctant there. Woodcroft also did an interview and kind of talked about like what he's got to work on. He's got to work on being a better communicator and all that. And so I'm kind of I'm like, all right, I don't know. Like,
then I don't see him working out too much in the interviews with Don Sweeney. If Don Sweeney wants the next coach to be able to communicate to younger players, it's got to be someone who's comfortable with that, proven, that whole thing.
And this is also sort of what we've talked about in the past, where like this is the disconnect that you can have, where it's got to be a great hire for Don Sweeney. It's also got to be a hire that makes sense for the Boston Bruins, and do those things naturally align, right? Like the best coach for the Boston Bruins is a guy that you envision being here for 6 or 7 years. I would say that's what you'd want to have with this next hire, but you might also need immediate results. And so a veteran option makes more sense if you're looking for immediate results. So that there's that part of it where a guy like Woodcroft makes sense because he's done it before. He's been an NHL head coach and like he can walk in and set the standard and guys are going to go, you know what? He's done it before. So we got to follow his lead. Whereas guys like Marco Sturm, guys like Mitch Love, like Misha Donskov, like they've only either been assistants at the NHL level or head coaches in the minors, and so there's a little bit of a difference there, obviously. And so that's a natural kind of conflict you might have here in terms of what's best for the organization and what's best for the executive of the organization. And how do those two things collide? We'll see. Marco Sturm is I think, legit candidate in this, especially with the way that Vancouver made their move, hiring, I believe it was Adam Foote as their new head coach.
You feel old yet, Ty?
I felt old when the finalists for that job were Sturm and Vancouver. The finalists were Sturm, Malhotra, and Adam Foote. And I was like, man, 2 out of those 3 guys were playing like less than a decade ago.
Seriously.
Seriously,
for me, it was Berube.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Once he
So
became
Bruins was
head
like a little bit
coach.
before my time.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like me like actively remembering him as a player.
Yeah.
Like I knew that he was teammates with Chara on Long Island, but I didn't know like I don't remember Craig Berube playing. I remember Craig Berube as an assistant coach with Philadelphia. That's like what I think of when I think of Craig Berube.
I'm old. All right. Marco Sturm sounds like he's another strong candidate. They've already talked to him. Sounds like it from the sound of, Elliot Friedman.
Mm-hmm.
But this is sort of speaks to another thing, another consideration for this coaching search is that it doesn't sound like the Bruins want to spend too much on the coach, which like, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. But it sounds like they stopped at a certain number when it came to Rick Tocchet potentially being head coach.
Which I'm okay with.
Ty's okay with it. I'm generally fine with it. I didn't need it to be Rick Tocchet, but he signed, I believe, 5 years, $5 million per to be the Flyers head coach. And so Bruins aren't willing to go there. But it sounds like they are trying to, save a few bucks on the coach because the guys they've interviewed, Marco Sturm, it sounds like they talked to Jay Leach already. I'm not sure about Woodcroft, but Jay Leach, Marco Sturm, those are guys that you would think, it's their first time being a head coach in the NHL. They're going to come with a bit of a lower price tag. Mm-hmm. But I think based on what you've said when we've talked about this in other recent episodes, Ty, that like you're okay with that because you're okay with them betting on a guy who's relatively young. Yes, it's his first time as a head coach, but he can grow with the players and like they can have their version of Spencer Carberry in Washington, right, who was eliminated last night from the playoffs. But you can't really complain about what Carberry did with that Capitals team to get them back to where they were at this point of the year. Like if the Bruins make it to the second round of the playoffs next year, I think we'll be pretty thrilled. So yeah, there's the consideration of them saving money on the coach, but it might actually work out because they might get the kind of guy that they really need, which is, yes, a first-time head coach, but maybe he relates to the younger players better and he sort of gets the most out of them and they grow together.
John Cooper didn't always make John Cooper money, right? Rod Brind'Amour wasn't one of the highest paid coaches right out of the gate. They were younger guys that those teams brought in rather because they liked their experience, they liked their candor, they liked their intensity, right? And it's paid off for all those franchises. I think that
I love that observation, Tom.
Like Rod Brind'Amour is a coach that like I watch Brind'Amour coach, and I know Boston fans like he's always whining at the refs when there's a penalty call, he's always looking incredulous, all that. He's a fantastic coach. He's such a good communicator. Players love playing for him. And that's something that, I have heard, I have seen it. I've talking to players who played in Carolina. And Taylor Hall actually talked about it recently.
Right. He's been there for 5 minutes.
He goes, this is why I wanted to resign here. He's like, seeing Brind'Amour up close, he's a great coach. And I want to be part of that. And it's funny because like every time we talk about Marchand, I don't know if I said this on the podcast or not, but every time we talk about Marchand and what he could do moving forward, I have always said, I don't know if I said it on the air, but I've said it off air, but like Marchand and Brind'Amour would be a great fit, man. Like that, like two guys that are just like, they got the same kind of mindset mentality.
They both have red asses.
They'd be awesome together, especially like Marchand and Jarvis on the line together.
Oh my God.
That'd be fantastic.
They could use a couple more forwards there. But yeah, Carolina in the conference finals, and you can just tell just watching them play that like they're all on the same page.
Yeah.
The way like one guy moves here, the other guy rotates back here. They do that so well. And it's that's coaching.
I gotta say, like the people that say that the Hurricanes are boring, I don't agree. I love watching the Hurricanes. I love the active defense. I love the 5-man pressure. I think they are really. I enjoy watching their brand of hockey. I don't know why people say it's boring. I think it's really entertaining.
Right.
To be honest with you,
I would say like they're kind of for the hockey purists, where it's like you enjoy watching a good system, guys playing good team hockey, where they lack a McDavid, McKinnon type of guy that's going to explode off the screen. I know McKinnon's one, but McDavid still needs that cup, and Carolina does too. Mm-hmm. But if they got that last piece, like that might be what they need to go over the top. But I don't know, maybe it's their year. Team.
I think, and Travis Yost, who works for TSN, I think it was Travis Yost who said this online the other day. He said like if you had a Final Four of Carolina, Florida, Dallas, and Edmonton, it's probably the most entertaining Final Four you could get out of the feel that you had after the first round. Like that was probably the best Final Four you can get in terms of entertaining quality kind of hockey. And so I think that's, that is true. That's kind of what I'm hoping for now, obviously. No, but like going back to the coaching part of it, like if you get a young guy, a younger coach, and a first-time head coach, but like you believe in the messaging, you believe in the intensity, the energy he can bring, that's more valuable to me than a guy who's done it before. Like, okay,
Yeah.
great, you've done it before.
Like literally, you've had the job before.
Yeah, exactly.
And like Woodcroft had some success, but like you flamed out. So
right.
You know.
And so I do think that is like, and we've gone over this, right? The must for their next head coach. Like, I do want him to pick his own staff. I do think that is an important part of this.
Yeah, have everyone pulling in the same direction, same vision, that whole thing.
But you know, a guy like Marco Sturm, like, you know, when he first came in, he was an assistant coach with the LA Kings. He ran their power play. Their power play wasn't all that great, but he's worked wonders with Germany. You know, at the national level, Germany was not a superpower by any means, right? And I think what's
80
been
years ago, baby.
You know, yeah, like hockey, but you know, he takes over as their head coach, I think in 2015. 2016, they're making quarterfinals appearances. They get to the gold medal game in 2018, at the Olympics that were in South Korea. So, like, there's growth there, right? And so you think he can lead men, and if we are truly entering this new era of Bruins hockey, in terms of the involvement of guys like Zdeno Chara and Tuukka Rask and Patrice Bergeron perhaps down the road, like Adam McQuaid obviously worked with the organization already.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Marco Sturm is a guy that, you know, Chara would know a lot about. Chara could tell you, oh, he does this, like he's excellent in communicating, like, and so if we're entering that new era and we're moving away from the era of the past, like, but you still want to have your familiarity with the Bruins, like Marco Sturm has kind of been through it all, you know, in terms of as a player, as a coach.
So you see him as a bit of column A, column B. It's not like, oh, they're just going back to familiarity with the whole, like, oh, the Bruins want the Bruins guy like that.
Yeah, no, because I mean, he was here for what, 5 years? They were a rebuilder for the majority of that 5 years. But you look at what he's done beyond that, like, again, building Team Germany, being willing to, you know, he was an NHL head coach, not head coach. He was an NHL coach. He was an assistant, and the Kings went to him and said, hey, we like you a lot, but we think that you should be the head coach in the minors to get more experience because we feel like that's going to benefit you. And he didn't let ego get in the way. He went, yeah, you're right. I'm going to go do that. Like, he could have said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm here. I'm in the NHL. Like, I'm an NHL head coach. I'm an NHL coach. But no, he went down there. He was willing to do that. He put in the work. Like, again, I think you want that kind of mindset as a coach. Like, oh, I got to be better. Okay, I'm going to get better. Like, I don't know. I don't hate that idea. So I will take a guy like that over a retread. It's just where I'm at. Where I'm at as a person, as an observer of the team. Like, I just think you need new blood that has a new way of thinking, that you know, this isn't their fourth stop or whatever. They're not trying to redefine themselves. They're waiting for their first opportunity, and they're going to tackle it full force. I think that's what you want right now.
I think you have fully convinced me that that's what I want too, Ty. Whatever Ty says, I want.
No. I mean, no, but like, I don't know. Like, what do you want, Woodcroft? Like, when I say, hey, they might hire Jay Woodcroft, are you like, oh yeah? No. Or you're like, oh, okay. You know, and
Jay Leach would excite me. He feels like a young up and coming coach.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like, and I'm not telling you that, like, if I say, hey, they're going to hire Mitch Love, you're going to be like, yeah, but you're going to go, oh, that's new. Let's see how it works. Like, let's see how it goes. Yeah. Like, I think that's where they are right now as a franchise. You want some new blood, some new excitement, some new energy, you know? And so if you can get that, I think you get it more with the first hire than you do a guy who's been through the ringer already.
I agree.
How I feel.
I agree with that. And yeah, I think on Woodcroft, Frank Saravelli also said that he said before the Bruins that he's a leading candidate to join up with Ken Holland in LA.
Mm-hmm.
The LA Kings hired Ken Holland to be their GM.
Yeah.
And so if I were to bet, I'd say Woodcroft ends up out there anyway. And the Bruins end up with, you know, Sturm, Leach. You're still saying Misha Donskov is a guy, but you know, Dallas they're going to game 6 in that series against Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how much longer Dallas is in the playoffs, but they might have to just wait that out.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like, is there any other candidates that pop out to you that we haven't mentioned?
Not really. I they've cast a very wide net, which I think speaks to the idea that they know that this might be their last hire, in terms of before front office changes are made. And so I like that part of it. I like that they are casting a wide net and they're not boxing themselves into, these are our 4 guys. Like, no, like talk to everybody, see what else is out there. But no, I don't think there's anyone that hasn't come up that seems like a leading candidate. Like you have veteran assistants on a lot of staffs from the NHL that like could in theory make sense, but again, that you're going back down the retread path, of like, okay, we're gonna get this guy or that. It's like, no, like go new, go inventive, go outside the box here. And so, but yeah, the Bruins have kind of said like, they've kind of patted themselves on the back here for saying that they've only done 2 coaching searches, or this is gonna be their second coaching search. So it's kind of a fun litmus test here to be like, okay, yeah, it is, but like, you gonna do the same thing, or you're gonna go different here with it. And so I'm curious. I'm dying to know where they land with it, but I think ultimately, I think they are gonna lean younger, perhaps more innovative, just because that's where the game is going.
That's what you want, but you think that's what they're gonna do.
Yeah, it's so hard to say because they often zig when you think they're gonna zag, but like. Okay, we've been saying now for what, 6 months, like you want to be the Capitals. Okay, what do the Capitals do? What do the Capitals fired Laviolette and brought in Carberry.
They brought in Cecil from Mr. Deeds.
Yes. So if you do that,
they're going to be a ping pong champion.
You got to do that.
After you I was like, what is he talking about? I think he's having a stroke.
It is true.
The hideousness of that foot.
But yes,
haunt my dreams forever.
So that's kind of, I think that's where they're going to go. We're going to see how it all breaks down, but that's where I think they're going to go. I think all indications are you're going to go that way, and you should go that way. If you weren't going to get a Mike Sullivan, who even then I was on the fence about Mike Sullivan because, he's won. He also won his first 2 years and then hasn't won since. So there's that part of it. I just think they're ready to embrace the future, and so you got to actually embrace the future, and that across all walks. That's what that means. So do that.
That's what, it's going to be. It'll feel refreshing if they go that route with like the young guy, new first time head coach, as opposed to another one of these retreads who's like bringing in the beat up old Toyota as opposed to like the brand new, Bentley, whatever.
Well, think about where we are right now, right? Like Chris Knobloch is the coach of the Oilers. This was his first NHL gig. And then, okay, well, what are the other guys? Okay, the other guy is Pete DeBoer, who's been around forever. He's been awesome in Game 7s. Paul Maurice has been around forever. Craig Berube been around for a long time. Like, if you're not going to get one of those guys, okay, then get somebody who can bring some new ideas and maybe.
I think this is their chance for that.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Right. Like, there's not a great veteran option anymore, in my opinion. So go younger. That's where I'm at with that.
That's where I'm at too, Ty. You have convinced me. I will not come off that opinion. You have set my opinion in stone.
I got to find out more about all these guys. Like, I admit, but like the biggest thing for me, I've said this before, the biggest thing for me with this next coaching hire, it's got to be a guy who can bring your defense to life and bring your young players to life. Like, those are the 2 most important things. Your defense and your younger players. You gotta really get to these young guys going here. You got to use them the right way. You got to give them some rope here and find out what they are. Because again, if you just go back to safe, well, that's how you end up in this mess in the first place. Like Dallas, they've brought their younger players along, right? They didn't abandon hope after 10 games and go, no, he doesn't have it. Like, you need a coach that's going to be patient and that's going to let guys grow and move together. And so that's, Jim Montgomery said that. I never saw it. I admittedly never saw it when it came to younger players. The only guy they developed under Jim Montgomery was Trent Frederick, who shot 20% for 2 years.
He popped for, got a little lucky.
And then what happened this year? Didn't shoot 20%.
Water found its level.
Right. And so you got to actually develop some younger players. And that's going to be the task of the next head coach, whoever it is. And so that is why I lean younger, because they've developed and they know, I've developed as a coach. I got to develop these younger players for them. I got to do what was afforded to me for these younger players. That's where I land with that.
It's absolutely, it's time. It's time to start playing your younger players. Let them develop. live with the mistakes and all that stuff. It does make me wonder, like, and I've said this a couple times recently on the show, that like maybe that Montgomery and Cassie before, maybe those guys really were just roadblocks for those younger players. Like I always wondered if maybe it was sort of the mandate from ownership, management, whatever, that we have to make the playoffs or whatever. Like maybe the coaches were sort of roadblocks to the young players, and that's not really what Don Sweeney wants. Maybe they really want these young guys to come up, play, develop, all that. And the coach was sort of, getting in the way of that. And so hopefully they do hire a coach that does not get in the way with that. All right, Ty, it's time to get to probably the more fun part of hockey talk on this program, Sports Hub Underground, is that's talking about hockey players.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about hockey players. You wrote on 985thesportshub.com. Check it out. I'm going to pull it up on my computer over here. 7 restricted free agents the Bruins could target with an offer sheet. And so, yeah, it sounds like the Bruins should get into the offer sheet market this year. The price tags are out. It sounds like with Morgan Geekie, as far as re-signing someone internally, you projected maybe around $5.5 million per for him. So that would mean if another team wanted to sign Morgan Geekie to an offer sheet, it would have to be a first-round pick and a third-round pick that they would send back to the Bruins. Don't see someone trading a first and a third for Morgan Geekie. So I would say the Bruins are pretty safe there in terms of re-signing Geekie. The question is, can the Bruins offer sheet someone else's player? And this has been a question for me, wondering, can the Bruins replicate what the St. Louis Blues did this past season, which is they signed Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. Dylan Holloway's a forward, Philip Broberg defenseman, I believe both away from the Oilers.
Yes.
And so they got away with sending just, second, third round picks for those guys. But those are guys that, they were relatively high draft picks. I think both, second round, second,
Broberg,
third
I think
round.
Was like 11th overall.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Broberg's
but he never
first
broke
pick.
through. Yeah.
Okay, but Holloway, I believe, was a second round pick. They were, or maybe a first round pick. High draft picks. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact information from you, but those guys were both high draft picks, hadn't quite panned out yet.
Mm-hmm.
Blues bring them in. Holloway at least had a breakout year.
60-something points.
60
think,
points.
Right?
So, like, he feels like he's turned into a legit player for them. Can the Bruins get their version of Dylan Holloway? Or, Philip Broberg's a defenseman, but we got to think about the forward group mainly. So you brought up a few names there. I don't think they're going the Matthew Nyes route. I think we both agree like they're not going to go
just too
high. He's going to cost too much.
I listen, I love Matthew Nyes. I think he's an absolutely fantastic player. I love watching him. Are the Bruins in the position where they should part with, assuming that to get Toronto not to match, you're going to have to offer like the second highest threshold? Are the Bruins in a position to offer a 1, a 1, a 2, and a 3? They're not. They're not right now. There's a science behind offer sheets. And as you mentioned, Broberg and Holloway, the Blues aren't doing that if they have to give up 2 1s, right? Like they go, oh, they're up against the cap. Those are good players. We can really make life hell for them if we offer just enough to give up a second and a third. And then they got to go, oh, man, can we match that? Can we really do that? I don't know. Like, there's a science behind offer sheets, right? Like, you have to target teams that are tight against the cap or teams that have a lot of high-end players that are going to need new big money contracts soon. And, there's no room in the inn for everybody. So you got to make some tough calls. And when the Maple Leafs tried targeting the Bruins with an offer sheet back in 2009 before the Phil Kessel trade came to be, the Bruins would not have had enough money to match the offer that Toronto was going to put forth, and that's why they made a trade.
That's why
Boston sensed an offer sheet coming, and they said, let's just do a trade instead. How about we just do that? Toronto's like, yeah, sure. Worked out for Boston.
So something like that could work out where it's like they don't have to do the offer sheet. The team says, all right, let's work out a trade.
Yeah, that can also happen as well. But I think I think the floodgates may open on an offer sheet. You got a lot of players that teams might be on the fence about or with the way the cap is going, like, hey, I can't offer you that. We can't offer you that. We just can't do it, and then you got to take the picks and go from there. But the dam may be finally actually broken on that front. It may have finally happened.
All right. So I think the first player you mentioned in your story here is a perfect example of exactly everything you just said. Might not cost that much. Hasn't had like a huge breakout year just yet. His current team is going to be tight against the cap. They got all these other contracts to worry about. That would be Will Cooley.
Will Cooley,
of
baby.
the New York Rangers. I had to look up the pronunciation. Is the Cuylle?
It looks like Coyle.
I
Yeah,
thought it
it's
was
not.
Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle was my first guess, but it's pronounced Cooley. Will Cooley, big guy, scored, I believe, 20 goals for the New York Rangers this year. Big, plays a physical game.
301 hits.
He dishes out the hits. He can score a little bit. Sounds like a Bruin.
Left winger too. Left shot, left wing, which is a dire need for this franchise right now. A sneaky dire need. Who's their best left winger right now?
Oh my God.
It is the right shooting Morgan Geekie. Who's their second best left winger right now? Center Marat Husadinov. That's probably their second best left winger right now. Like they do not have a natural left shot, left wing.
Yeah.
You can move Pavel Zacha there. Zacha, I think, prefers playing center, but you can and probably will move him there next year. So, like, you don't really have left wingers right now. And so I think a guy like Will Cooley makes a lot of sense for the Bruins. You know, the Rangers could avoid the offer sheet trouble with Will Cooley if they are able to move Chris Kreider, which could happen, should happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. But a lot of money being spent right now in New York by the Rangers. Lafreniere goes up to $7.5 million next year. Shesterkin's making $11.5 million next year. They added JT Miller, obviously. Keandre Miller is another RFA for them as well. So we'll see what happens there. Will Borgen is now going to make $4 million for them. So like they have given some raises out, right? And so they may not have the space to keep a guy like Will Cooley around. Will Cooley, who they might like, but they might say, sample size isn't big enough. You know, like if you want to pay him 6.5, we can't do that. Like we just can't do it right now. And so that could be an option as well. You know, but that's a player that just screams Bruin to me. Watching him play, the tenacity, the energy, the willingness to engage physically, feels like a guy the Bruins would really like.
That I think, yeah, he sounds like a Bruin. That's pretty much, I think you nailed down almost the perfect offer sheet candidate with Will Cooley. So we'll see how that goes. The other one I really like this idea. Luke Evangelista, 23-year-old, plays for the Predators. He's never topped 39 points in a season. I like the way you put this. He's not going to pop off the page with his speed. So certain people have to say, well, so you're saying he's slow? You're saying he's slow?
He's a little. He's not a burner. I'd put it that way.
Not a burner. That's usually a euphemism for he's slow. But look, I tend to think speed is overrated. I think I'll take a guy who's, a 7 with his speed, but he has a high-end skill and hockey IQ over a guy that can fly all over the ice, but he has no idea how to play the game.
Yeah.
I'll take the guy that's
so like Benoit Pouliot, basically, is kind of what you're saying.
Oh, Jesus Christ, not him.
A guy who was insanely fast, but kind of had a 10-cent head in terms of like decision-making and things of that nature.
Exactly. Like, I don't think you need to draft, like, just take the fast guy and then, like, hope that he figures out how to play hockey. Give me the guy that knows how to play hockey. So you're talking about, like, David Krejci was never the fastest guy, but a brilliant player. Like, he had a brilliant hockey IQ to him. So Luke Evangelista is an idea I like because I feel like he's not going to cost much on the offer sheet in terms of the compensation, and he fits pretty much what the Bruins need offensively.
Shoots the puck like crazy. I crunched these numbers. Players who averaged under, I think it was 14 minutes or 15 minutes a night. He had the most shots on goal among that. Break it down by points, I think he was 5th most points among that same grouping. So he gets the puck on goal, right? And I do think the Bruins are going to transition to be more of a shot volume team. I think that's kind of where they're leading. Right shot, right wing. You mentioned 23 years old. Might not cost you a lot. And so he also gets to really good ice, right? Like when I watch him, he gets to really good ice for a player who's only 6 feet tall. Probably 180 pounds or so. Like he's not a big guy, but
that's instinct.
But he gets in there. Yeah. He's also, I think he's a very underrated passer as well. Just from watching him and watching the Predators this year and last year, I feel like he can, give you some strong secondary scoring, which is kind of what this team needs right now.
I think that's another good option, especially because I don't think he's going to cost much. And it feels like he could be a Holloway in terms of you're betting on him to, reach that next level here. And I feel like he could do it. He'd probably get top 6 minutes here, the way they're set up. So I like that idea. We'll do one more player because I feel like we're running short on time here. We got to get out of here soon. But we'll do one more RFA candidate, and that is Capo Caco the former number 2 overall pick. If I remember correctly, he was hyped up as like, he was a legit like top end prospect and another tier from prospects picked after him. Generally, I don't know if there were another prospect or 2 after him, but like he was generally considered in a higher tier than other prospects. Like he was the consensus, top 2, 3 pick going to that draft. Has not even come close to panning out. The Rangers eventually traded him to Seattle. He's now an RFA. But he could be an intriguing option, and this feels like sort of the MO for what Don Sweeney's done in recent years, which is, take a flyer on a guy that was a top draft pick, highly touted prospect, but hasn't really panned out so far in the league, and maybe you get the most out of him. We saw that with Pavel Zacha, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Zacha has, reached another level. He's become a pretty good player for the Bruins. Do you think Kaapo Kakko could be that guy for the Bruins?
So Kakko is interesting because I feel like the Kraken would probably match most offers thrown his way. They have the space to do it. So that it might get a little tricky. But one of the things that I think you'd like about him if you're the Bruins is the defensive metrics. He's very good defensively. I think he's a very underrated defensive winger. And, the Bruins have talked about not losing that identity, right? They want to be defensively responsible. They want to be that kind of team. And so you lose Marchand. Your PK was not great a year ago. Being good defensively goes beyond just having good defensemen. Like you got to have forwards that have the hockey sense and the hockey IQ to eliminate chances in their own zone. And a guy like Kakko, I think, can do that. It makes him interesting. I do think Seattle kind of would match most offers thrown his way. And then you get into that kind of messy area. One thing I did when I wrote the story is I didn't mention what I think would cost because you never know, right? You never know with this market, and especially with RFAs and offer sheets.
Right.
So that's the only problem with a guy like Kakko. One player I wanted to bring up, if you don't mind, is I actually want to bring up Voronkov from Columbus.
We've mentioned him before. Yeah.
Yeah. I watching more of him, doing a deeper dive into what he can be. One thing that's great about Voronkov, when you watch his game this year, he was tremendous as a net front screener, net front shots on goal. Like he got in there and it was hard to move him. He's 6'5", over 200 pounds, but he was a really good complementary wing for opposite a guy like Kirill Marchenko. And Marchenko is a superstar in my opinion. I think he's going to absolutely pop off.
Right. He had a breakout year this year for Columbus.
He's so freaking good, dude. And so I think that if you're looking for like a long-term running mate for David Pastrnak, who isn't Morgan Geekie, Voronkov would be a really good bet. You got your sniper, you get the guy who goes to the front of the net and screens him or blocks out the goalie's vision like the sun. And now you're getting either Pastrnak snipes or you're getting easy putaways for a guy like Voronkov. So that's a guy that I would look at as well if I'm the Bruins. Another team, the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are going to have guys that are going to need to get paid the next couple of years. And so can everyone get paid like that? Like that's kind of the question when it comes to a team like Columbus right now. They have the space, but do they have the willingness to pay everyone they got to pay along the way?
Right. You think eventually they'll have someone who's a casualty, and Voronkov could be in that.
Yeah, it's like Anaheim,
and they'll get a second or third round pick out of it most likely.
Think about Anaheim, right? Like Anaheim has done a masterful job of this rebuild. They have talent like crazy. Can everyone make $8 million? Can everyone make $7.5 million? I don't know. And does Anaheim want to be that team? You watch Anaheim games on TV, the Honda Center is not always full. Do they have the funds as a team to sign all those contracts? I wonder, it's kind of how you got Hampus Lindholm. They weren't going to pay him, the $58 million or whatever that you wanted to pay him, or the $52 million, whatever it was. Do they want to pay everybody like that? Like that is also part of this calculus here when you're building an offer sheet.
All right, I'm going to bring up one more player. I apologize. I won't keep you much longer, Ty. But you mentioned Anaheim, Mason McTavish, another guy that's on your list.
Yeah.
See, I really like McTavish. I would love it if the Bruins got him, but I just feel like he might have done enough to this point that he's going to get into that first and third round tier.
Yeah, it does feel that way. If you're the Bruins, though, there might be a guy that you might be willing to part with the first round pick. You might be, depending on who it is, because you have the Toronto first in 2026. you probably have the Florida first in 2027 or 2028, depending on how things shake out here.
Yep.
So you have extra first round picks. And if you think that you're going to be good next year, are you parting with that pick anyways at the deadline to get somebody who is not as young as McTavish, maybe not as high of a ceiling as McTavish? Like, there's that part of it, you know, and that's what makes things interesting here for the Bruins, that for the first time in a long time, they have extra first round picks and they have their own first round picks at the same time, which means they could offer sheet somebody and part with one of those picks if they believe in that player.
They have a lot of capital on their end.
Yes.
On their end, they can basically do whatever they want in terms of spending, draft capital, trade chips, that whole thing.
And here's something else to not sleep on when it comes to this offseason. Let me run through the Bruins center depth chart for you real quick.
Oh, Jesus.
You have Elias Lindholm at the top. Then you have Middlestad. Then you have Middlestad. Then you have Poitras, Minton. You have Zacha. You can move him all around as we talk about. You have Kastelik on your fourth line. Johnny Beecher on your fourth line, maybe. Like, there's kind of a middle there that you're like, I don't know how this looks right now.
Yeah.
I don't see all of these guys being here.
That's why I could see, like, trading players.
Yeah.
Hockey trade.
So if you do that, though, you, in theory, have an opening for what you view as a more sustainable, long-term 2C or 1C or 3C, whatever it is, however you envision it, right? And so that's part of this equation that you look at a guy like McTavish and go, okay, well, if you bring him in, he's immediately your number one or number two center. And he is for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Like, he's been impactful at the NHL level every year he's been up here.
Yeah,
so,
I guess that's fair. A first round pick wouldn't be terrible for McTavish at this point. He's already scored, 60 points. Still young.
Yeah.
He's big. He's got a great shot. He can score.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he could be one of those guys that we've been talking about, where like they could call in and be like, look, we love McTavish. We're going to offer sheet him. Can we work out a deal?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can we bypass the offer sheet thing and just work out a trade? Maybe Anaheim could get one of these players in the Bruins that we've talked about, where it's like, we'll send you this guy instead. Maybe they could work something like that out.
Well, and how do you want to build it in terms of like, your franchise in terms of like what, like, because we've talked about this guy before, Leo Carlson. That is your future number one center. That is who you're getting.
Yeah.
Last year the kid they draft, Beckett Sinecki. Sinecki. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. He was
First name Beckett.
He was third overall. And so I think really what you're coming down to here when it comes to the Ducks is you're going to either trade Zegras or McTavish. Like, you're not going to keep both those guys.
Right.
I just think, like, long-term organizationally, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to trade Zegras and keep McTavish. But if you come in with a first and a third, they might bite on that. That might be a better return.
Is that because Zegras seems like an asshole?
Yes, 100%.
We are allowed to say asshole on YouTube.
That is
Ty.
100% a thing. That is
douchebag shit asshole. We're allowed to say it.
That goes
safe for ads.
That goes back to the Zegras stuff goes back to BU, where like you heard about him kind of being like a prick when he was at BU. Like, for whatever reason, that's kind of followed him for a little while now. So,
and he hasn't really had the production to sort of justify it.
Isn't it so weird that he was a cover athlete for NHL? Isn't that so weird?
Because he did a Michigan.
Yeah, that's like, I think that's why. But like, it's just so bizarre. Like, that was like a cover athlete.
This is your guy. This is your king.
That might go down as like the weirdest cover athlete of this era of like NHL video games. It has to.
That might be the worst pick of all time.
That might be the weirdest one since Peyton Hillis was on Madden.
Yeah, right.
It's probably the weirdest one since
same
then.
tier.
Yeah, that's a good big three idea.
That is
worst video game cover athletes.
Oh, we're not doing the big three this week, folks. I apologize. We're sort of pressed for time. But yeah, I think we've covered the topics for this week. Do you have any closing thoughts for us?
Closing thought, as it relates to the Bruins in this offseason, how do they get a right shot D? How do they do it? Not a great market in terms of free agents. It's Ekblad, and then it kind of drops off. Yeah. Brent Burns, who is good, but he's 41 years old, I think, next year. You have then a lot of guys are just kind of like role players, right? And the Bruins may need that. You may need that, but are you super comfortable going from Andrew Peak third pairing to Andrew Peak second pairing, right? Like, you're going to have to find somebody to take on some of Carlo's minutes. How do you get that guy? Is it through a trade? Like does Calgary want to trade Rasmus Anderson? 31 years old, right shot D, can be impactful in all three zones. Like, what's that going to cost you? That might be a pretty penny, a player like that. I think he's 31. I might be like, he might be younger than that, actually. No, I think I don't know. I can't remember. Regardless, how do you get that player? Right shot Ds, like, they tend to go for a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
because every team's got left shot D up the wazoo. It's kind of harder to find a good right shot.
Right. And so, who is that guy? I don't think it's David Savard, who is a free agent, was in Montreal. Like, he's getting older, and it's a little redundant, wouldn't you say? If you had a right side, that's McAvoy, and then Peak and a guy like Savard. Peak and Savard are very similar. So I think you want to blend. You want a guy who can skate, a guy who can make some moves, but also play a harder game, a stiffer game when it's required. So who is that player? Like that's going to be a challenge for them. And it's not just me saying that, because, Andy Brickley has said this. Bob Beers has said this. These are two guys that, kind of going back to what you said off the jump earlier.
What do they know? They
have opinions, but a lot of their opinions are based off things that they have heard from people saying, hey, we got to address that. I thought that was really interesting. That I think it was the day of and I was on Twitter and I was there, so I didn't see this all unfold. But I think after the Sweeney, Jacobs and Neely press conference, they kicked it to the studios in Nesson, and they had Brickley at the desk, and Brickley was saying, who takes on Brandon Carlo's minutes? He's not just saying that. That's a conversation that they've had within those walls, that you're gonna have to see who takes on those minutes.
Right. We'll
find out.
It's not just coming off the top of his head.
Exactly.
All right. Well, the defenseman thing is we'll cover that more in depth in a later episode. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, folks. That does it for us this week. If you made it this far, thanks. I love you. I'm Matt Dolph. He's Ty Anderson. I'm gonna work on the graphics here. I might have to put our names under cover my gut, if anything. But put the names under.
You should write it on your shirts.
I bought this from Frank, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you some damn moron? All right, this is the Sports Hub Underground. One more time, folks. We're doing YouTube for the people. So hopefully you appreciate that. You enjoyed it. Hopefully we can, keep growing the pod that way. But otherwise, you can get us at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can get every episode at 985thesportshub.com and the Sports Hub app. Thanks for listening or watching. We'll talk to you again soon.